The Committee of the Whole meeting this June 3rd, 2024, as opposed to what it says on the agenda, 2023. I just have to point that out.
That's okay. Otherwise, we won't remember to change it in minutes.
Okay, we have one item for discussion, the strategic plan on pages 1 to 16. Is anybody wanting to comment on it other than the administrator?
I don't really have too much to comment on. Really, it's just what council went through, and the goal of bringing it back before council was, like in the open meeting, there's the comments from the public. And so kind of putting all that together, it's, yeah, just for your information, if there was any points that you wanted to change, or if it's all good to be adopted.
Councillor Peters.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, there's on page 5 and 6, there's a duplication.
Yes.
Things is repeated, but I'm sure you found that one.
There's a what?
A repeat. So
The
the,
communication engagement.
because I know you said it was rough draft, so.
Mhm.
The questions I have is how are we gonna, is there a process in place already that I can't remember? Or is there a way that we're gonna provide continuing updates on where we're at with the strategic plan? I was thinking if we did it at our committee of the whole meetings, that might be an opportunity to just get kind of updated and see where we're at with all of the things that are in it, or specific things that we have questions on.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking, and kind of second to that, some food for thought. I've heard of some other places doing it, but I couldn't remember where, and I couldn't find any specific examples. But apparently some other places have mirrored their committee structure to their strategic plan, seeing how there's 5 pillars, change it to have 5 committees that each have their own pillar that are kind of their focus, and then they directly work on and manage and then bring back to the committee of the whole. Just food for thought. I'm not saying it has to happen, but just something to think about if council so chose.
Sorry.
It is me.
I see a great need for Councillor Ranta and I as policy and bylaw to get together and make some notes based on this, because there's a lot of bylaw and policy suggestions in here, so mostly policy, but so that would definitely be something that she and I would have to look at.
But yeah, as far as your question is concerned, I think that yeah, looking at it as committee of the whole, this would be a continued item on each committee of the whole, like a progress report, and then any other items that council brings forward.
I don't know if you were still
Yes,
here
I
with
heard
this,
all of it.
and then the other comment I made was that you and I are going to have to get together because it has a lot of policy and bylaw
Yeah, that's awesome.
updates, so.
That's fun. I've been kind of trying to honor the flood, like,
Yeah,
workload burden and not push the policy thing, like it would have probably been a lot further down the road.
yeah,
Just regarding the tracking, like the tracking of the strategic plan is, I think, a good way to do it, like to create like just a table, like use a table or a spreadsheet and just track it, just like you do with the Monday thing. And it would just be so beautiful to be able to track it, because a lot of times strategic plans, and people are getting better about it everywhere, is that it just is a really nice little plan on a really nice little binder.
a really nice corner of
Has
a
a
really
nice-
nice desk.
It has nice pictures.
Yeah.
So,
Gathering dust.
yeah, no, it's really, really good. I really like the community tidiness is in it, because I think that right now, like, it's one of our big things that we are working on. And yeah, no, I love our strategic plan. I think it's kind of cool that we didn't revise the like mission statement. And you know, it's a very general mission statement, I think it's really cool. It kind of honors the last council a little bit too, because I know that was their mission statement. So, yeah, I really like, I won't get into a lot of details, but I'm really proud of it. It seems kind of long, but as a strategic plan, and does anyone else feel that it's a little ambitious?
It's what we asked for.
There is a lot.
It's what we asked for. And that's, moving forward, that's something to think about, that when we are having our strategic planning meeting, and this will be looked at every year, that's kind of how it goes, is that when we make these plans, that we have to also keep the budget piece of it in mind, because when the original budget was presented by staff to council, we all went, what the heck? But it was based on this.
Yeah.
And so we have to be careful what we wish for.
Yeah, I like the strategic plan as well. There's certainly enough in here to keep staff busy for several years. The one issue that I think is missing from my perspective under governance and advocacy, under fiscal responsibility,
Which page are you on?
that's page 12.
Okay.
They talk about financial reporting and all those sorts of things. What I would like to see, and I might be the only one, is some initiative for cost control or tax reduction or utilities cost reduction or those sorts of things. Because as it says in the survey, there are people noticing that taxes have gone up 50% over the last few years. And it would be nice if we could put an end to the increases. Eh?
Show them why.
No, we're not show why.
Show them why.
Get it under control, reduce costs and reduce taxes at some point in the future, in my opinion. Like, we never used to increase taxes based on the assessment increases, but that seems to be what's happening now. It used to be that we would base our tax rate and the revenue we generate from each of the tax classes based on what we made in the previous year. And you figure out what that is, and then whatever you need to do in order to increase revenue if necessary, that's what you do. If you don't need to increase revenue, then you don't raise taxes. So I would like to see something in here under fiscal responsibility, an initiative to reduce cost and or reduce taxes and utility charges. Thank you very much. Councillor Peters.
I don't disagree that having something in there about managing, I can't think of proper wording right now.
Expenditures.
Not just expenditures, but ensuring that any increases are absolutely necessary, like something along that line, that we have to take that into serious consideration. We have had to play catch up, and we have to make sure that we balance our budget. We don't have the revenues that we had in the past. We're building up our revenues from the landfills, but we're nowhere close to that again. So I don't think in the foreseeable future it is reasonable for us to reduce anything at this particular point in time, maybe sometime in the future, or if we can grow economic development, which I think is covered under the economic development portion of this. But I don't think we can be as specific as saying we're going to try to reduce, because I don't think that's a reasonable expectation, given the cost of living, the way the world is going. Costs are going up constantly, and we cannot not recognize that. So, and assess values, to my response to that is, we've never been in this situation before where it's been so crazy. So I personally think that that's going to level out over the next couple of years, hopefully, and we're not going to see the crazy increases that we've seen. Like, I can use my house for an example. It's worth $300,000 more than when I bought it, which is just stupid. It's not worth that. I'm not putting it up for sale, so I can say that, but, so, I think some of that's gonna level off too, so, we don't have any control over those assessed values, so they're not really a tax increase by the village, but, definitely they need to be taken into consideration when we're having those budget discussions.
Well, I'm assuming that if assessments go down, then we'll reduce taxes.
Well, you're not reducing taxes, you're reducing the amount the taxes are charged on. So we don't have any control over assessed values, it's
Right.
not,
But if
It's
they
not
go
a
down,
tax.
if the assessment goes down,
then the amount of tax that we earn will be lower. So, yeah,
With-
the amount
well,
we
then the
pay
cost-
will be
With
lower,
the same tax rate.
with the same tax rate, yeah.
Well, I
Councillor
think-
Ranta,
I'd like to, well, I think that, okay, so we have a strategic pillar here called governance and advocacy. And the first action is fiscal responsibility. And the only action under fiscal responsibility is a really good one, which is to set up the quarterly financial reporting, which we don't have right now, which is gonna be great. What could we agree on to add as a item that would say something about our finances in the way that I think it's pretty agreed on by council, that we want to be fiscally responsible and we want to have minimal tax increases or attempt to reduce the impact on residents of increasing taxes, or have a statement about our overall wish that we would like to maintain a reasonable tax burden on the public, that we aren't, that's a goal, that's part of our strategic goal. And so maybe we would like to develop a wording that we can all agree on that would state something about fiscal, like tax rates and fiscal responsibility without committing one way or another to how much or how little, or if it's a reducing line or if it's an increasing, like increasing with a limit, just a broad general statement. I know that one of our budget discussions, we did have a goal of decreasing the light industrial tax or mill rate, and that was something that we're intentional about and that we're doing over a long range of time. So why would it be like if we don't really have that initiative, that concept in writing anywhere. We just did it, and we have a trend. You can see it.
Actually, previous council had it in their
Right.
strategic plan.
Oh, yeah, so maybe we would want to, for instance, add that, because I did have a conversation a couple of weeks ago with somebody and I said, well, the council has a dream of changing that gradually over time, not maybe like suddenly back to a much lower rate, but and I know that we might not have complete consensus on that either, but those are the kinds of financial things that we could contemplate to add to this. And the other thing I know is that a strategic plan doesn't have to have every single thing, just to counter my own thinking, is that the strategic plan isn't meant to have everything that we're doing in it. And it's also something we can add to later, not just right now. But I wonder if maybe some kind of overarching statement about our, like what we're discussing here would be good. I don't know what the wording might be.
I'm sure the administrator can figure it out.
And another thing to bear in mind with this, with the quarterly reporting, right there, that's all that it says, is the guideline right now for quarterly, we're gonna have quarterly reporting. The nuts and bolts of what that's going to look like is still to be determined, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for input to see what council wants to see in quarterly reporting. And that adds a layer of fiscal responsibility to it. Not only is it being shown regularly to the public through council meetings, but also to council regularly. So depending on what it is, then you can say like, I feel like this trend that we're seeing in this service is not what we want to be seeing. Or maybe this isn't actually worth this much, that's just speculation, but just some food for thought, because there's different levels of granularity that we can go through for that, and we could theoretically even bump that to more, like reporting more often, depending on how simplified the reporting is. Like more often than quarterly, so that you can see it at a higher level, or you can keep it at quarterly, get some information. The big thing is like trying to balance, is it worth the time for staff to be doing it for the information that you're getting? Like, are you actually getting value out of it?
I think the reason we landed on quarterly is given the system that we currently have and the terrible chart of accounts that Christina is, that's one of her main goals, is to get that in control. That it's extremely time consuming for her to build those reports at this particular time.
Yes.
Hopefully that will improve as she
It'll get easier over time.
she improves the system, which she's very valiantly working on, so she's done tremendous things already with it. But I understand where you're coming from, but I think I agree with Councillor Marant is that we need to put something in there, 4.2, you know, what will we do, or in under 4.1, what will we do, have something about creating an atmosphere, creating an environment of, you know, watching
Affordability.
affordability and cautious expenditures or something along that line, but yeah.
Yeah, the one big thing that changed over the 4 years I was gone, we used to use a lot of the landfill revenue, which of course the previous council didn't have, and we used that to keep the taxes low, artificially low, arguably, and that initiative changed with the last council. They decided not to spend the landfill revenue on just supporting the budget. They wanted to use it.
We only had revenue for what, a year and a half
Right.
of our time,
But
so
I think,
that's not a fair.
well, I think what you basically decided is you wanted to use landfill revenue for capital expenditures rather than to
Balance the budget.
balance the budget. And I don't know that that's necessarily the best way to go, because we're getting revenue from a variety of sources, grants included, and we use all those to help balance the budget. And so I'm inclined to think we should continue to use landfill revenue, which has been going up in recent years, to help keep the taxes low and the utility costs low.
That was kind of the dream scenario, but we haven't reached that point yet where we can even think about that.
We're living in the dream.
We're living in the dream. You know, the landfill revenues are still being used to help that balance the budget, so.
What was that great word you guys just came up with?
Sorry, I stepped out.
Affordability
Yeah.
is John's word.
Yeah, okay. Put that in a sentence and add it to as a 4 point.
Well, it's under 4.1, but another, what will
Yeah.
we do?
Yeah, and you know, something else that I think we share, topping up the landfill legacy fund and then putting kind of hold on it for like only like if we have another emergency and we need to spend money on recovery again. Hopefully we don't, but wouldn't it be nice to know we just have like 1.5 million instead of 900,000 or whatever it
I
is
think
right
we've
now?
got 1.25 at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah,
this
like
would
just
go into a
to
very-
bump that up and keep it flat line on it, put a seal around that envelope and say, like, this is
Unless we're
only,
building it.
yeah, this is only for emergencies and like protect that money. Like protect that money and not like think, okay, this is a really important project, let's, you know, check another 100,000 out.
Subject to the will of council.
Yeah, but I think that just to have the philosophy that we have that as a buffer for the difficult times that sometimes we face. Like, and I will say that the landfill revenue has been kind of volatile lately. There were many years where it was very reliable, but then you don't know what you're facing moving forward. And if we get into a situation once again, like the last council did, where all of a sudden, poof, it's very low, it
Zero.
puts the community into, oh my gosh, sorry guys, I thought I had it on, I do have it on my watch, sorry. To put a seal around that, and I think philosophically we all agree with that. At least that's what I kind of sense from the budget conversations.
The other thing too that we talked about that will help with that is that the way the unrestricted reserves are right now in our budget and in Vatham, they're specific to things like that don't exist anymore. There's things in it.
Yeah.
So when that's revamped too, that will help us protect that little pocket of money as well, because there'll be some redistribution, of what we have in reserves, and that'll help that too. But yeah, I think we're pretty much unanimous in protecting that, and if nothing else, building it.
Yeah, we used to put 25% of the landfill revenue annually into the landfill legacy reserve, and that's how it got built up to whatever it was, 3.2 million.
And is that invested so that it's gaining interest?
Yeah, absolutely.
All of our reserves are.
So you should be able to build it back on itself
Well,
to
we,
the 1.5.
we've been using the interest to offset operational expenses. So the actual accounts aren't gaining any interest except for the ones that we're legally required to, like gas tax fund, for example. That one, any interest that's gained on it has to be put back towards the same fund. But any of our internal reserves, they stay at the dollar amount that they're at. And then as the funds, because they're not independently, they're a lump sum that's just put into the bank. So we determine how much interest was gained, how much was gas tax, because I think that that's the only one that gets chunked off. And the Growing Communities Fund, the one that we received last year. Those two we account for separately, then everything else, the interest goes against the books. And it's factored in against that, not the individual assets.
Whereabouts do you sector in your government grant money?
How do you
Where do you pull it from?
I'm sorry, just not sure what you mean.
So when you go after a grant, so you gotta come up with 50,000, where are you pulling that money from?
50,000, like as a matching?
Yeah.
It depends on what it is.
Whatever the grant is, it doesn't matter what the
Yeah,
grant
like
is, where's that money coming from?
General account. Yeah, like, it depends on how the grant's set up. If the grant is like a 50-50 matching grant where we have to put 50% into it, firstly, we haven't had very many of those in the past few years. We've been trying to stick to the higher percentage, but when that has came up, it's came through council to come through the general reserve, usually earmarked against a specific, actually I can't even think of an example where we've had to have one in the past few years. Everything has been 100%. In the past 2 years, I think, nothing's coming to mind as a matching. But
You just pull it out of general.
so say for example,
Yes.
for the most part, yes.
Yeah.
So
Short answer, yes.
should
Yeah.
we have an account set aside just for
Matching funds.
grants? And take some of the legacy fund and put money into it, and once it reaches a certain mark, then we don't have to steal out of the legacy fund at all.
It's like with the accounting, all of our funds are held together in one account.
But
And
have
it's
it on
just-
paper, that
Yeah.
this much
Yeah.
is segregated.
So we could, but I don't really think it's necessary. The best person to speak to this sadly isn't here today. She's at the GFOA conference, learning about how to do this sort of stuff even better. But Christina, I'm sorry, would be able to explain it a little bit better. She's the whiz with the books.
So that might be something for our next budget discussion.
Yeah.
Is we're talking about realigning those unrestricted reserves, perhaps build that into a reserve. Pardon me, that
The
we
one
use-
lump sum reserve.
Yeah, a lump sum reserve that's
then
what that money would come from, and then we
meters.
know that we have those funds guaranteed. Because we're looking at 10% on our disaster financial
Yes.
assistance, that we're responsible for 10% too. So
Yeah.
all of that could be taken into account in that
little.
ball of
And-
money, yeah.
And depending on what it is, like sometimes, like for example, we're using gas tax to offset that 10%,
Mhm.
for the most part, so that's coming from gas tax fund to
But if
offset
you
that
are
10%.
going to dip into that, you need something there.
Yes, but we do have the general reserve, and whenever we've had it, we'll usually bring it forward. We would look at those specific, like those 10 or 12 or 15, whatever it is, earmarked items.
You're always, okay, we got it this year,
Mhm.
we don't have it next year.
Mhm.
If you got that money sitting there and you don't touch it, hey, there's a grant we want,
Mhm.
there's the money for it.
Yeah, and we do have some of those line items established. When we were going through budget discussion, those 10 to 15 different line items that separate out that $500,000 of general reserve. Each of them earmarked, like that 500 divided by all those different things. So typically, like say for example, council.
But there was also money sitting in accounts that are no longer,
Yes,
Needed.
so those ones wouldn't have been touched. We wouldn't have recommended pulling from them because they don't exist, or we might recommend pulling from them because they don't exist. But that situation just hasn't really happened in the past couple of years, so.
So that's when we started budget
yeah,
conversations in the fall, those are the things we should be making note of to make sure we bring back up.
Yeah, but maybe they're not strategic items or.
No, I'm saying for our budget discussions.
but
So,
strategically, it'd be nice to know that you've got this sitting.
I agree. Maybe we should put that in there as a third fiscal one. Is to maintain the landfill legacy fund
Your legacy.
and
fund,
interest for,
Then a grant writing fund, it only has to be what, say 500,000 or something.
Usually it's an in and out with grants. Yeah, it's
It's
fairly,
fine
rare,
if
but
it's
usually there's
100%.
something.
yeah, I understand where Kelly's coming
Yeah.
from, like have a designated thing that's where that, so when a grant application comes up, we know we have that money sitting right there
It's
that we can
always
pull
sitting
from.
there.
And there doesn't have to be a big
General
discussion about
revenue's
it, it can
gonna be
just
this.
happen.
Yeah, and
So-
we do have that with those line items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on whether we need to build that into this strategic plan or whether that would come from our budget discussions for our next budget. I don't, and then we could add it once we have a better plan. To put it in now, we're kind of just spitballing.
Maybe now's not the time, like you said.
Yeah, but it's a valid question and I think it's a really good idea. So it's definitely something we need to look at moving forward. And I know we touched on it in our budget discussions last time, but I don't think anything firm was decided.
Yeah, I think it could be covered off rather simply with a comment under fiscal responsibility to maintain sufficient reserves to enable the village to
Go out for grants.
match funding for grants that we may apply for, or something along those lines.
Kind of in line with that, what I've been hearing, I have a couple notes, is that under section 4, like governance and advocacy, adding, because there's fiscal responsibility, but maybe changing the word for action item 4.1, I'll just bring it up on here. Probably not big enough to read. But rather than having all of fiscal responsibility kind of encapsulated in one thing, because it sounds like it should be broken up into a little bit like more parts, just changing the name of this goal, because the strategic plan is meant to be some defined goals, like what exactly are you gonna do? Not just a statement on what you think, but this is exactly how you're going to do it. So with this one, financial reporting could be 4.1, 4.2 could be creating an accountability policy, kind of in line with what you were talking about at first. Kind of the lens that we look through to see if it's a decent expenditure that we do things. And then another one would be, basically they're all policy creation. That would be like establishing how we manage the gas tax fund via policy, like how the old one of 25% automatically goes in, maybe revamping that, reestablishing it. And then the third one is the reserve policy. determining how we're going to handle the other reserves that aren't the landfill legacy. Because the landfill is its own thing, or maybe we incorporate them in the same thing, again, to be determined by council. But I'm kind of seeing 4 things coming out of fiscal responsibility. There's what's already there as one, and then 3 other policies to be created. Does that kind of make sense? Because I could add that, and then those could easily, like it would be basically, I think that governance and advocacy has like 6 things or something, 5, 6. Yeah, so it would be 7, 8, 9. So it would be 9. Like I don't think that working on policies, like it'd be a bit of conversation, but I don't think it would be crazy to achieve. So
There might be a way of combining them,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
into one,
Mhm.
like and having just the kind of different aspects
Reserve
of that.
management policy or something like that.
Yeah. Hey.
Or even if it could be like a overarching fiscal responsibility or fiscal accountability policy with the quarterly reports added in there so that that's not dropped, like just because of a change in council.
Yeah, so I'll think up some ideas. Like the nice thing with the strategic plan is it's not a mandatory thing with a timeline. So if we want to finesse it a little bit, it can be, this is the working copy and we're getting some other stuff into it. So,
Okay, I think we beat the fiscal responsibility to death. Any other council members with issues they wish to see included or altered in the strategic plan? Seeing none? Does that mean we're done until 6 o'clock?
unless there's any new business on it.
I don't see new business on the agenda.
There isn't. You guys can vote, and if you unanimously agree to add something, you can.
I thought we couldn't vote it, maybe the whole meetings. It's just
Oh yeah, you're not
discussion.
supposed to. Yeah, too bad.
It's discussion based.
I tried to give you a note if anybody had anything,
It's
but
all
nope,
for you.
too bad.
Yeah, I think you have to refer it to a council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good, we're done.
Adjourn.
Good idea.
5:07.
It's even on the TV, adjournment.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna go home, aren't you?
And throw the salad down.
That's nice.
I got a whole bunch of leftovers sitting in my fridge.
Planovers.
As you
Not
see, I had-
leftovers, they're
I had-
planovers.
I had company.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I wasn't
nice.
home much
Opposed, carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Yeah, Administrator Couture.
One question, since I wasn't at the last meeting, considering that there was a letter from the TNRD and there was some discussion on the letter going to the TNRD, it hasn't been sent yet, the one that was going to be going from us. Is there any other items or changes that you would want in that letter in consideration of your conversation at the last meeting?
Well, I think it's gonna be discussed at the TNRD on June the 20th, is what I understand, so, you know, I can't think of anything else we need to have in the letter.
And we still want the letter to go out just for confirmation, the
Yeah.
original one? Okay,
In my opinion, yes.
sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Any other,
I asked this privately, but I'll ask it in public about the vest for the, Caribou Sound for
Yes.
private month.
That should be going on tomorrow. A staff member has been making the vest and we're anticipating having it in place tomorrow.
Thank you.
thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, committee reports, economic development, Councillor Deaver.
Nothing new at this time.
Budget and administrative services. I don't have anything unless anybody's got any questions. Bylaw and policy review, Councillor Ranta.
No, you don't have any updates.
Thank you. Public Works, Councillor Deaver.
Nothing new.
Healthcare and Protective Services, Councillor Ranta.
We did have an accessibility committee, our first meeting. That was really exciting to get that work going. So there is a recommendation that the minutes of the May 16th, 2024 Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be adopted as presented, and I'll move that motion.
Second,
Discussion.
good input.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to emergency management, Councillor Peters.
Nothing at this time.
That's a rare thing.
I know, it's lovely.
Yeah, isn't it lovely? Parks and Recreation. I didn't make it to the last meeting, but I've got the next meeting in my book, whenever it is, July sometime or other. I would move that the minutes of the landfill monitoring committee meeting be adopted as circulated.
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. TNRD and Intergovernmental Liaison, BC Transit Regionalization Report, pages 13 to 24. There seems to be an awful lot of discussion online from various mayors of affected communities who are upset with the regionalization initiative because it's contemplated to cost more money. And that's upsetting, especially to Clearwater. I think there's a meeting coming up in that regard. I don't know what this council's position on it is. It looks like something that BC Transit is intent on doing regardless what the politicians believe. And they launched into it without ever consulting with local government. They just launched it as an initiative. And unfortunately, it looks like it may cost more money, unless of course we get out of the service. Councillor Peters.
yeah, I have mixed feelings about having read through it. The fact that Yellowhead's not even considered as an option.
Yeah,
When they've provided us with good service throughout the whole time
Right.
we've had it.
right.
There has been challenges with drivers though, which hopefully theoretically would be mitigated with this plan because it would be a larger
Collective.
collective to pull from. The maintenance was an issue. It has been an issue in the past. I think we are pretty stable with the system right now the way it is. So there's pros and cons to it, but yeah, the increased in cost concerns me as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a valuable service that I would hate to see us lose. But we also have to we had the discussion in the committee of the whole about being fiscally responsible, so I think we're gonna have to, move forward. I would suggest that you're probably correct that this is moving forward whether we like it or not. Unfortunately missed the meeting, didn't see a tour.
They didn't even discuss this in the meeting.
Really?
Yeah, felt kind of blindsided, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, whether we wanna make our disapproval or our disagreement known to them, whether we think that there's whether there would be any value in that, or whether we just kind of go along with it and make a decision once we know more about the costs.
Well, it sounds to me as if the mayor of Clearwater and the mayor of Ashcroft are both concerned about the increase in cost, and I'm sure they're going to make BC Transit aware of that. There's some kind of meeting that I think I just got an email about coming up, and I just need to know where council wants me to go. Don't tell me.
Well,
I definitely believe we should voice our displeasure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
Especially with the added cost. Why is it costing that much more?
right, right.
wages mostly.
Okay, well, I would then move that we receive and file a report from BC Transit regarding regionalization.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Just that if you are involved in any of those meetings, we would work with the group. Like, once again, rural BC gets shafted, that's kind of the way of the world.
Yeah.
But to have a collective voice of making our displeasure known, I think
Yeah,
we might have some power. So.
especially when we're being lumped in with Kamloops. I
Yeah.
don't know what difference Cache Creek, Ashcroft, and Clinton will have to an outfit like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's concerning for all the participants, perhaps not quite so much for Merritt, who was part of this regionalization initiative, but they, I'm sure will be involved in the discussions as well. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement, Ashcroft. I would move that we receive and file a report from Daniela Dick regarding BC Transit Annual Operating Agreement.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the only other thing I would point out is we've got a copy of the TNRD annual report for 2023, which I will leave on my desk. Don't hesitate to go and grab it. I'll leave it in the, in the middle of my desk if you want to have a look at it. It's always interesting reading. On to the Cache Creek Community Fund, Councillor Ranta.
There's no report.
Thank you. Staff reports, community survey results, interesting reading from page 27 to 56. There's sure an awful lot of people want to get rid of the mayor, but other than that, the pool seems to be a big issue, with some in favor of reopening it and others opposed. And it was interesting reading all the results. So I guess I would move that we receive and file the report from CAO Couture.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Ranta?
Well, I would like to discuss the survey results, and I don't know, what are we gonna do with the feedback? I don't know what we're doing with it, like it is interesting reading, but are we gonna identify some, statistics on it? Like, are we gonna use it in a meaningful way?
I think the concept was to incorporate issues of concern into the strategic plan going forward.
And the annual report.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah, cause I mean, I was really glad that we got a lot, it seemed like we have got a reasonable amount of feedback. A lot of the things in the feedback, I totally agree with, like, are concerns of mine when I ran for, this position. I know that we've got, like, a lot of plans and maybe, not actioned, like, things like the downtown cleanup, because there's, like, quite a few projects that have, kind of been more important at this time, but, I'll look forward to seeing how it's used, because I kind of think, like, if you ask for feedback, you kind of got to report back and say, okay, this is what we're doing, this is your feedback, this is what we heard, and this is what we're doing, and, just wanted to see what was gonna happen, but I would just like to say thank you to all the people that responded, yeah.
Yeah, some of the comments were very valuable, some of them were quite lengthy too.
Yeah.
On the motion then to receive and file the report, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. You're still up, Administrator Co-Chair, Bylaw Enforcement Officer.
It's not me, it's just the bylaw, well, not just the bylaw enforcement officer, but it's his report on his training.
Yeah.
And the recommendation is just to receive and file his report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
It's nice that he's taking these courses and that he's sharing what he's learning with us so that we are aware of what he's actually up to. It's a nice change.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Information correspondence from Regional District of Nanaimo and the City of Kamloops. I would move that we receive and file the information correspondence.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Peters?
I would like to see us send a letter of support as stated on page 67. Scrolling down, sorry. There's a template for a letter of support for the Legislative Reform Initiative. I believe, Mayor Ranta, you were at that session as well at UBCM.
Yeah.
It was quite a lengthy and vigorous discussion about this and how, while it does mostly affect the regional districts, it does affect us as well, because the whole act hasn't been updated since 60s, I think, or something.
Yeah, it's
So
been a long time.
And this was kind of the working group was the consensus of the people in the room that was the next step forward. So I'd like to see us support that.
Moved. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Discussion.
Already a motion on the table.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, to receive and file.
The
Sorry.
motion was to receive and file. Thank you. So let's vote on the receive and file. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then a new motion to send a letter of support to the Regional District of Nanaimo in accordance with the information on page 67.
Yes. So moved.
So, second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any new business? Seeing, Councillor Peters.
Just a reminder of the drag race is coming up this weekend at the airport. And that our fire fit team that went to Courtney, CEO Couture was one of the members of the team, Chief Tom Moe and Second Assistant Chief Alan Peters competed in the team competition and they missed qualifying for nationals by 3 seconds. Which with only 3 on the team is really impressive. Like that's a
That's
tough
pretty good.
competition.
Pretty good.
Wow.
And Second Assistant Chief Peters received a gold medal in women's over 40, a silver medal in the Chiefs competition, which also includes the men, and a bronze medal in women's overall. So.
Pretty
Women's
fancy
overall.
for a little outfit
What's that?
like this.
Women's overall, sorry, did I say
You didn't
men's
say,
overall?
yeah, you said that.
And she's also going to compete on June 15th and 16th in Calgary just for the experience and she's qualified for nationals, which will be in Kamloops in September.
Oh, well, excellent.
And the other question, I guess I wanted to bring up Canada Day, there was some informal discussion,
Yes.
something we can put out to the public.
Yeah, we're working on a poster for Canada Day. We have similar events to what we had last year, just on a slightly bigger scale. So we'll have cupcakes. We have some area groups that are going to be coming out, and pop-up splash park again
Good, thank you.
at the park.
At the park.
And Ashcroft is going to partner with us on it or something, or attend.
They're going to come out, and they are doing something themselves this year.
Okay, there you
They're
have
gonna-
it. Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Seeing shaking head, questions from the press?
No.
No. We have need of a closed session pursuant to section 90.1 and 90.2 of the community charter. I remember when they put in the community charter, there was talk about the Local Government Act at the same time, but nothing happened.
So moved.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Brief break?